So we had a host of different subjects that we covered. Yesterday, we actually covered the origin of Black comic books and superheroes. Ashley Turnbull was here yesterday to do that, which was an amazing presentation. So today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about African-American trailblazers in the city of Paterson. All right. I'm not going to do any national people. I'm talking about people at the local level, Paterson and also Passaic County. The one thing I want to say, when we talk about history, a lot of times we put history in a box, right? We only talk about things that we know, okay, or within our window of knowing, right? But there are a lot of extraordinary things that happen before that, and there are some extraordinary things that are going to happen in the future. So I would like to kind of tie into a lot of trail activities and people. We talk about the city of Paterson from 1850 to about 1950. All right. Now, the city of Paterson had a very small population back in the mid to late 1800s. All right. Slavery was still prevalent, and actually, New Jersey was the last northern state to abolish slavery, I believe, in 1866. And there were slaves in the city of Paterson. It was a small number, but they were there. But there were a group of people who were resilient and did some extraordinary things in the city of Paterson. And there are people who migrated to the city who did some great things as well. So I'm going to talk about some of these icons in the city. Go ahead. Before I do that, I always like to recognize during Black History Month the my big three. I like to call them the big three when it comes to Black history. First, you got Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who was the founder of Negro History Week in 1926, which is now Black History Month, which became official in 1971 when Gerald Ford was president. Then you have Reverend Jesse E. Moreland. Reverend Jesse E. Moreland was a collector of African American history. He had thousands of books, all right, in his library. He was also a major executive with the YMCA, and he was a professor at Howard University. And they asked him, could he donate some of his books for their research center? And he did that. Now, Howard University have one of the best research centers of African history in the world, and it's called the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. And Moreland was his last name, Reverend Jesse E. Moreland. And then you have Arthur Schomburg. Arthur Schomburg was Puerto Rican of African German descent. Raised there, eventually moved to New York during the early part of the 1900s. And during the Harlem Renaissance, he was a major collector of African history artifacts. And because of the information that he was able to collect, there was a lot of people who sought after him as an advisor. And there's now a museum that's named after him in New York City called the Schomburg Museum, which is connected to the New York Public Library. So these I consider my big three when you talk about Black history and Black History Month. Go ahead. So let me just ask somebody, why do you think local history is important? Can anybody tell me, why do you think local history is important? Anybody? Why do you think local history is important? It doesn't necessarily be Black history, but local history in general. Why do you think? Go ahead.
Because that's history that's around your area.
That's right. History that's right in front of you. It's directly in front of you, right? So it gives you a sense of pride. It gives you a sense of purpose of who you are and where you are. And sometimes you don't have to look at people nationally. You can look at people that's right dead smack in your area. And you'll find a lot of tremendous history. For example, now this is this picture was from 1987 at the Meadowlands. This is the Taub Dobie Championship. My little league basketball team, school where I went, we beat School 21 in the championship. Now, the Taub Dobie League was named after two people. It was named after Joseph Taub, who was a philanthropist, who was a business owner, and he was the owner of the New Jersey Nets that some of you guys know as the Brooklyn Nets right now. All right? He was from the city of Paterson. The other part of the league is named after Larry Doby, who was the first African-American who integrated the American League after Jackie Robinson integrated baseball, all right, from Paterson. Now, what I want to show you is that in this picture, this is me right here, the big head boy, right? Now, in this picture is unassuming, right? You're just looking at a bunch of kids holding up their trophies. But I want you to recognize some of the historical figures that are in this picture. For example, Mr. Tyrone Collins. He was a basketball great, a longtime teacher and basketball coach here at Kennedy High School, one of the greatest basketball players to come out of the city of Paterson in the picture. This person right here, this is Larry Doby, first African-American to integrate the American League baseball in the picture. Also in the picture is Dr. Frank Napier, the first black superintendent of Paterson Public Schools. And then you have Jimmy McCullum, who was one of the most prominent Little League basketball coaches in the city of Paterson, coached people like the likes of Tim Thomas, who was drafted in the first round of the NBA, who had a long career. My point in showing you this is that sometimes we don't even realize the type of people and resources that are around us. We take those things for granted. So what I'm saying is don't take it for granted. Those individuals, whoever they are, embrace them. Talk to them because they have a lot of history to share. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the trailblazers out of Paterson, Passaic County, and I'm going to start with medicine. Go ahead. And the first person I'm going to talk about, he's one of my favorite people to talk about, Dr. Norman T. Cotton. Dr. Norman T. Cotton was one of the first African-American physicians to come to Passaic County and is recognized as the first black physician to come to the city of Paterson. He started his practice in 1910, all right? Originally from North Carolina, he was educated at Lincoln University. After he went to Lincoln University, he got his medical degree school in Boston, Massachusetts. Then he started his practice here in the city of Paterson in the early 1900s. Outstanding leader, not only a physician, but he was also in the tuberculosis society that they had moving in the city of Paterson, because tuberculosis was a major issue during that time. And he was one of the spearheads of that project. They also had in the city of Paterson what you call Negro History Week. That was a national initiative that was established by Booker T. Washington when he was at Tuskegee Institute. And they used to have Negro History Week, Negro Health Week, that was established by Booker T. Washington. And during Negro Health Week, in their respective communities could get services that they normally wouldn't get on a regular basis. So he was instrumental in bringing that to the city of Paterson. One of the other things that I really appreciate about him is that he provided services for people of color in the city of Paterson who had no money. He would provide medical services to people up until 11 to 12 o'clock at night, 5 to 7 days a week. He was providing services to people of color. An extraordinary man, philanthropist. He was close friends with Booker T. Washington, and he was close friends with W.E.B. Du Bois. Outstanding individual. And because of him, we have people like Joseph Fulcher. Joseph Fulcher was recognized as the first pharmacist in the city of Paterson. Now, mind you, before Joseph Fulcher, you had a person by the name of Alfred Gibbs Campbell. All right, Alfred Gibbs Campbell, who was from the city of Paterson, did a lot of work here. He was a poet as well. He was also the editor of one of the magazines. I think it was called The Alarm. But anyway, Alfred Gibbs Campbell patented a lot of medicines and perfumes, but he wasn't a registered pharmacist. But I like to recognize him for the work he did in the city of Paterson. But Dr. Joseph Fulcher was the first registered pharmacist in the city of Paterson, and he had his pharmacy on Market Street. I believe it was Market Street Pharmacy. He was a graduate of Rutgers University School of Pharmacy, did some tremendous work with the NAACP, and he also got involved in politics when he ran for assemblyman. Go ahead. These are some of the other African-American physicians that have come out of the city of Paterson. I'm going to highlight a few of them because I can't go through all of them because I'll be here for 3 weeks because their stories are great. But I'm going to highlight all of them. This gentleman right here, Clarence W. Hogans. His nickname was Shag. He was a prominent physician in Harlem, New York during the Harlem Renaissance. He was also an outstanding athlete, tremendous football player, graduated from Lincoln University, and he went on to Howard Medical School and got his medical degree. He was the personal physician to Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Robinson. He was born right on Pearl Street. That's what I want to tell you. These people were right from our area. Clarence W. Hogans, prominent physician. Was a personal physician for some of the prominent musicians during the Harlem Renaissance as well, right out of the city of Paterson. This gentleman, right here, Dr. Argani Lucas. Dr. Argani Lucas was a longtime anesthesiologist in the city of Paterson, working out of St. Joe's Hospital and also Morristown Hospital. Also, during Negro Health Week, did a lot of work for African Americans in their health and wellness for many, many years. Let me just select one more. This gentleman right here, Dr. Thomas Henry Amos, Jr. Dr. Thomas Henry Amos was also a physician that worked in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance. He was born in the city of Paterson and did some great work. His father was responsible for establishing the Colored Men's Association, which was kind of like the YMCA per se. He established that in the city of Paterson at 159 Governor Street. It was one of the most significant facilities in the city of Paterson going back as early as 1909. And he was very, very prominent. His father was very prominent in establishing the Colored Men's Association. All right. Now, the other thing you want to notice about all of these individuals right here, they primarily graduated from 2 medical schools because of segregation. They either went to Meharry Medical College, which is in Nashville, Tennessee, or they went to Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C. But you got to realize Meharry Medical College and Howard University, during the first 100 years of their existence, they produced 90% of the medical doctors in the country. From their inception as a school for about 100 years, they produced close to 90% medical doctors of color in the United States, because a lot of those folks could not go to predominantly white schools. All right. The other thing you want to notice about them, that they were all, most of them were all a part of the military as well, whether they were in World War I, World War II as decorated officers. But keep going. All right, so let's talk about education. But before Dr. Napier, the first teacher and principal to come out of the city of Paterson was a lady by the name of Eliza M. Hall. In 1850, was a couple that was out of First AME Zion Church, which is the oldest African-American church in Passaic County, but back then it was called Godwin Street Church. And from that church, they produced a color school, and this young lady, Eliza M. Halstead, was the first principal of that school. You're talking about 1855. Right? And I was able to find this information in this book, Schools in Paterson, that was actually published in 1877. So about 22 years later. All right. Now, because of Miss Eliza M. Hall's influence, you have Vera P. Thompson, who was the first Black principal in the Paterson Public Schools. She became a principal in the Paterson Public Schools in 1962. She was principal at School 6 and at School 21. As a matter of fact, when she was a principal at School 6, my mother was a student there. So you're talking about a long time ago. All right. Now, there was something that I really, really appreciate about Vera P. Thompson. It's not only she was the first black principal in the Paterson Public Schools, she was the first woman to be appointed assistant superintendent of Paterson Public Schools. Not the first black woman, the first. She was at school 6. Before she became a principal, she was a teacher, she was a vice principal. When she served as vice principal, she was bilingual. What she would do on her free time, she would tutor the other teachers. And the reason why she did that, because she wanted the teachers to have a better working relationship with the Spanish-speaking students. And so she would do this on a daily basis. She would teach the other teachers Spanish, and this is a picture of her doing that on a particular day. Woman. Switch the slide. Now, when we became assistant superintendent, she actually filled his spot. Dr. Frank Napier, who was the first African-American superintendent of Paterson Public Schools. All right? When you talk about Paterson royalty and groundbreaking history, it don't get no better than Dr. Napier, who was also a minister. He was also a community activist. He also authored a lot of magazines and books and publications through the Union and also other educational publications throughout the United States. All right? Dr. Frank Napier. He was actually superintendent, I believe, when I was still a student in the past, obviously when I was at School 10, but outstanding individual. School 4 is named after him, right? School 4 down there on Matlock Street. It's called the Dr. Frank Napier School of Science and Technology. So he has a school that bears his name. Go ahead. Public safety. First black firefighter, City of Paterson, Henry Otis Harris. All right, became a firefighter in 1960. Prior to that, he was in the Army and took on the profession of boxing. All right, very good at it as well. However, he wanted to do something beyond that. And he took the fire test. He did well. He ended up at the top of the list. And in 1960, he became the first black firefighter in the city of Paterson.
I knew him when I was with the fire department. He used to call him Henry O.
Henry O.
And he's with the truck company. He started out downtown with
Yep.
that ladder too.
He was with the truck. Yep, absolutely. Then the other thing is, when he retired, he moved to Florida. They had this huge retirement ceremony for him. I mean, when I tell you, it was tons of people at this place. I had a chance to meet him at retirement dinner. He was my fraternity brother, and just an outstanding gentleman. He ended up retiring and moving down to Florida, but because of his influence as the first black firefighter, you have my. Just last year, Michael Hall was appointed the first African-American deputy chief. All right? You see, one has influence on the other, all right? And they probably didn't even know each other. But because of the history and influence, compels people to press forward and do a little bit more. And because of Henry Otis Harris, you have people like Michael Hall. Anybody have any questions? Okay, go ahead. First black police officer in the city of Paterson was a gentleman by the name Frederick C. Thompson. He was also an outstanding football and baseball player. Played a little bit in the Negro Leagues for a short period of time. Now, I haven't found any information on what team he played for in particular during my research, but there are several news publications that say he did play a short stint in the Negro Baseball League, and he was also a standout football player as well. He became the first black police officer in the city of Paterson 100 years ago in 1925. Let's go back. Here's a picture of him on the day that he was being appointed, and then years later, this is a picture of him when he served as a detective. He retired, I believe, in the early 1950s. Then he went to Portland, worked in law enforcement down there. I don't know if he had family down there per se, but he did move to Portland. It was like weird. How you go from Paterson to Portland? But anyway, he moved to Portland, Oregon, and he did some law enforcement work down there. Okay. First black female police officer is this young lady right here, Vivian Blackman Edwards. Not only was she the first black police officer, first woman black police officer, she was also the first black officer to receive a rank in the police department when she became a sergeant. All right. She was on the police force for about a solid 11 to 12 years. And when she retired, she was actually at the top of the list to become a lieutenant. All right. Vivian Blackman. Okay. But he's one of my most favorite people outside of Dr. Cotton. He's another one of my favorite people to talk about. Reverend James H. Penn. He is the longest serving attorney in the history of Passaic County. You know when he retired as an attorney? How old he was? 95. He passed the New Jersey bar in 1909 and played a key role in passing civil rights legislation in the early 1900s as well. He was also a minister, and he was involved in a lot of civic activities and did a lot of legal work for people of color who didn't have money as well. Another extraordinary man. All right. And because of his influence, you had people like Judge Womack. Judge Stephen Womack, who was the first African American that was appointed to the state superior court as a judge in Passaic County. Then after him, you have LaToya Jenkins Stewart, who became the first female judge appointed to the superior court in Passaic County in 2017. Now, this is a picture of her being sworn in, right? In her new role. Just there. I want you to look at this gentleman right here. Kenyatta Stewart. That's her husband. When I first started working at Kennedy and I was working closely with a teacher named Miss Perry, he was in our homeroom as a sophomore, right here at Kennedy High School. Graduated from, he went to school, I think he went to undergraduate school in Long Island, but he got his law degree at Seton Hall. Seton Hall, got his law degree there, right? He has a law offices he has in the city of New York, also in Paterson. He's also a corporate counsel for the city of Newark, and he's one of the primary campaign managers for Mayor Ras Baraka, who's running for governor. Just want to let you know that. This is another picture of him, graduate of Kennedy High School, Kenyatta Stewart. From Kennedy High School. The next young lady, municipal, also graduated from Kennedy High School, grew up in the Towers. Dornham Blakely Harper, Esquire. Right here out of John F. Kennedy High School, right down the hill, grew up in the Riverview Towers and did some extraordinary things, went to Hampton University, got a law degree, became a municipal court judge, and serving her community in a major capacity. Entrepreneurs. Now, back in the mid to late 1800s, Paterson was big on industry. It was probably #1 industrial city in the United States. At one point, Paterson was considered the cleanest industrial city in the United States. A lot of people don't even know that. In like the late 1940s, early 1950s. So a lot of African Americans who came here actually couldn't get a lot of jobs in the industry, except they came across this gentleman right here and his father, William H. Hopper, right? His father, Henry Hopper, was a freedman, and in which they actually put together handles for tools that people use, right? For whatever type of maintenance work or construction work they were doing. He would supply and develop those handles. So he gave a lot of opportunities for black workers in an era when discrimination was major. Okay? Hopper Street, that's right. Yeah. I was going to actually mention that. And then his son actually continued the business after he passed away, and he was a major advocate for integrating black children in the Paterson schools, all right, during that time. Go ahead. Another one, Samuel G. Walker, right? He was first steward of the Hamilton Club. Hamilton Club was a very prominent high-end club for the city of Paterson. A lot of prominent individuals went there, all right? A lot of attorneys, politicians, business owners, they would go there, and he became the first steward of the Hamilton Club. You know who actually recommended him for that position? It was a man by the name of Garrett Hobart. If anybody here can tell me who Garrett Hobart is, I will give you students. Can tell me who Garrett Hobart was, I will give you $20. You got 5 seconds. No, I need students. Anybody? And too late. Garrett Hobart was. Garrett Hobart.
That's the gentleman who they named the Garrett Mountain after, and he was also a mayor, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Yes, he was.
he was something else too. Go ahead. He was the vice president of the United States under President Teddy Roosevelt. Right. Theodore Roosevelt replaced him. But here's the thing about Garrett Hobart. Garrett Hobart was also a prominent attorney in the city of Paterson, and he died while in office as vice president. There's 2 statues.
One of them is Garrett Hobart.
Garrett Hobart. If you go inside the Paterson Library, you go up the stairs, there's a huge picture of Garrett Hobart, yes.
The president's office at William Paterson University was his summer house, and it's named after him.
And I'm glad you said that because he had a mansion. Check this out. He had a mansion on Cal Street. Y'all familiar with Cal Street? And passing the 4th Ward? He had a mansion on Cal Street that sat right where the YWCA is. I have a picture of it. Beautiful picture. He had a mansion that sat right there. He's the one who recommended Samuel G. Walker to become a steward at the Hamilton Club. And Samuel G. Walker took that opportunity to establish his own catering business and restaurant, which was at 186 Paterson Street in Paterson. All right? As a matter of fact, remember I told you guys earlier, Dr. Norman T. Cotton was close friends with Booker T. Washington. When Booker T. Washington did his New Jersey tour, when he came to the city of Paterson, he ate dinner at Samuel G. Walker's establishment. This was 1 year after Booker T. Washington died. Go ahead. Yes.
People have to realize that Hamilton Club, where he worked, was a 5-star hotel.
Yep. Big time.
All over the country.
Yep.
So come to Paterson
Yep.
and stay at that hotel.
Yep.
And that role of catering, because my father worked there later on in the catering
Yep.
at the hotel, was incredible.
Yep. And here's the thing about the Samuel G. Walker's catering facility in this business. There were people from all walks of life that wanted his catering business. He was one of the top caterers and one of the top restaurants in that area. In the early you're talking about 1927, 1930s. Amazing. All right? Go ahead. All right, a lot of people don't know about this young lady, Anna L. Randolph. All right, Anna L. Randolph was the first black social worker appointed in the city of Paterson in 1927. And her husband, Reverend James Randolph, used to be pastor of Calvary Baptist Church. She was major when it came to civil rights and also women's suffrage. All right, and she was one of the first, actually not one of the first, she was the first Negro black woman to try to organize a club for black women in the city of Paterson. And she was instrumental in trying to get a community center built in the city of Paterson. And like I said, you're talking about the late 19. How much time do I have left? Minutes. All right. Quick question. How many people know who Rosa Parks is? Rosa Parks. Raise your hand if you know Rosa Parks. Can somebody tell me who Rosa Parks is? A little bit. What was Rosa Parks known for? Right, the bus boycott, right? Right. The civil rights movement. She was one of the catalysts, right? Refusing to give up her seat on the bus during the civil rights movement. So just a little backdrop. You know, Rosa Parks came to the city of Paterson on 3 different occasions. Most people know about the two occasions she came here. One, in 1986, she came here when they named Rosa Parks School of Fine and Performing Arts after her in 1986. That was actually the only school at one point, I still think it is, that has her name in the United States. All right? But at the time when she came for the ceremony, it was the only high school in the United States that had her name. That was 1986. In 1982, she came here when they changed Graham Avenue to Rosa Parks Boulevard. That's where I grew up. I grew up on that block. Dr. Norman T. Cotton had his doctor's office on that block, which is now a senior citizen home, which is named after him. And Rosa Parks came here in 1957, right after the bus boycott. Okay, so she was here. She spoke at First AME Zion Church. It was sponsored by the NAACP, and she came here and spoke at boycott. During that time, she was the field secretary of the Montgomery NAACP. Now, we know about Rosa Parks, but if you know Rosa Parks and you're from the city of Paterson, you need to know this lady right here. I don't have a picture of her. It's hard to find a picture of her. I went through the Passaic Historical Society. I went through so many aspects, Paterson Museum. I went through the Stromberg Research Center trying to find a picture of this lady. I haven't given up. I'm going to find a picture of her. But her name is Minerva Miller. Minerva Miller had one of the earliest civil rights cases in the history of New Jersey for people of color, primarily a woman. She won a civil rights case in the in 1911. This is a little bit right after Plessy versus Ferguson, when they basically said segregation is cool, right? That continuation in 1911 happened with Minerva Miller. Her friends went to a movie theater. They went to a Nickelodeon theater. Anybody know what a Nickelodeon theater is? Because we had a bunch of them, right? All right, so we know Nickelodeon TV shows or whatever. A Nickelodeon theater is broken down into two words. Nickel, which means what? 5. And Odeon, which means facility that shows shows, right? Nickelodeon, and we had a lot of Nickelodeon shops in the city of Paterson. She went to one that was actually called the Paterson Movie Shop, and when she got there, she was going to pay her 5 cents for the movie theater, for the movie, and the lady told her, you got to pay 25 cents. She refused to do it. This is a black woman in 1911 suing a white business when segregation was still high. And she won her case and was granted the maximum out. $500 in 1911 is a lot of money. That's like $16,000 now. Or change. All right? From that case, New Jersey State Supreme, and it was upheld. One of the oldest civil rights cases here in the state of New Jersey, 1911, right out of the city of Paterson, with a very honest, private young lady who refused to pay what they wanted her to pay because of her color. She won that case in 1911, Minerva Miller. So I'm telling you guys right now, if you know Rosa Parks, you better know. If anybody asks you about civil rights cases, one of the first people you should talk about is Minerva Miller. All right? And those are things, right? Minerva Miller gets verdict against Paterson Show for $500. Court upholds. All right? Go ahead. How much time? 4 minutes. All right, sports. Now, first African American football coach of Central High School before it was Kennedy High School. This gentleman named Aubrey was from Mount Clinton, New Jersey. All right, tremendous athlete. Now, the thing about this is he was Notre Dame. He was the first African American to become captain of any sport on the campus of Notre Dame. basketball player, right? Was drafted by the Chicago, short stint with the Chicago Bears, the city of Paterson, became a biology teacher and a football coach, the head football coach. Now, his stint as a football coach in Paterson was short-lived. Why? Because J. Edgar Hoover, who was over the FBI, was recruiting African Americans to become FBI agents. Left the field of coaching and teaching at FBI and was there for a long period of time. Had a long career in the field of government and serving with the FBI. So I'm gonna leave it right there. Finally, I just wanted to show you these two guys right here. These are arguably the two greatest athletes of the city of Paterson, Larry Doby and Bob Spook Smith. So my question to you guys are, before you leave, I know you got to go, who's going to be the next Larry Doby in this group? Who's going to be the next Minerva Miller? All right? Keep that in mind because there are people in your community who are looking for you to reach your full potential. So once again, thank you guys. Good evening. All right?